What's happening, guys? It's Adam here. Just before we go into this week's episode, I want to let you know that we do an extra episode of this shit every single week exclusively on Patreon. If you don't know what Patreon is, it's basically a way for you to financially support this podcast while getting a few rewards for yourself. Now, you can sign up for £3 a month, £5 a month, or £10 a month. The more money you give us, the more benefits you get. But even the people who only sign up for £3 a month, which is what, less than the price of a fancy coffee, you get an extra episode every single week, which is about an hour and a half long, where it's just me and Dan most of the time. You also get early access to these public episodes with the guests. You get discounts on merch, discounts on live shows, early access to tickets for stuff like that. And also, you get access to every single Patreon episode we've already done as soon as you sign up. There's a shitload of stuff there. It's a massive bag catalogue. We've been doing this for months now. Sign up today at patreon.com/haveawordpod. The link is in the description. Subscribe to this channel while you're there. Give us a little like on the video, and let's get to the podcast. The thing is, if you go really deep, you can actually damage their bowels.
All right, I don't really want to talk about your dad anymore. Anyway.
I just got head rushed.
I knew you were doing it. So I was like, right, I'm literally going to let you put the ball in my court and then I'm going to fucking volley it back. Shut up.
It's bonus time. Welcome to the bonus whatever fucking thing this ends up being.
It is what it is.
It is what it is.
Is it because you miss me?
It's because I felt like you needed to do a podcast.
I got on holiday on Saturday morning, and I literally on the drive, Etta was asleep and Laura was listening to a podcast. By the way, I'm so jealous when she listens to other podcasts.
What, when Laura does?
I would rather she got fucking smashed in by the local lacrosse team, Cheshire Bands. I hate it when I hear fucking shag married annoyed.
Yeah.
When I hear the Rams, even though I know Chris.
Yeah.
He's a mate. And I'm like, you dirty bitch.
But that's worse. You'd rather your missus fuck a fucking stranger than one of your mates, wouldn't you?
Oh, I just think they're so good. Rosie Ramsey's so good. I'm like, oh, you're cheating on me pod-wise. She was listening to a pod, got to Wales. I'd had an hour driving. I was like, right, this is what I think we should do with the pod. I think the next step is, like, I'm literally unpacking into a static caravan going, Adam, Carl, this is what I think we should do. I'm like trying to get hyped up. Like, I really felt like I was one message away from you going, Dan, just have a holiday, dickhead.
Well, I see in the little group chat we have now, which is me, you, and the sensei, who's not here today. First time in a while. It's just old school, just me and you.
What is it, like fucking June over here?
You know when you log into your WhatsApp, because I have my WhatsApp notifications off, because I'm in so many group chats that my phone would be pinging constantly and it drives me mad. But I logged into WhatsApp and you'd sent about 17 unanswered messages and all of them paragraphs as well. There wasn't like a little 3-word thing. It was just, and I was like, oh, Dan's missing the podcast. He's in a fucking caravan park in Wales and he just wishes he was on a fucking industrial estate in Runcorn.
I was like, bigger picture, guys. This is what... I just think we've got to, like, we're in a position now where we can crack on. You're like, all right, knobhead, get the fucking sandcastle made. Enjoy time with your family.
You came back from your holiday early, though?
Yeah.
Why?
Because they don't podcast. What's the fucking point of them? What's
You're
the point
sat in a caravan in Wales with your headphones on going, Etta, nonce!
So, I'll explain. Basically, with the holiday, we had really nice weather.
Yeah.
And then the weather went.
Yeah.
We hadn't paid for the static. It's fucking Laura's bosses. We were like, should we just bounce? We'd had 3.5 days of beautiful holiday. The weather went shit. We're like, it's like, that was like being on holiday in the Mediterranean.
Good option, innit?
Because you'd not paid for it. And you're an hour and 40 minutes from it. It was like being on holiday in the Mediterranean and then someone just going, oh, sorry, you've woken up in Rhyl. Yeah, you were in Mallorca and it was July. But now...
How many people...
You're in North Wales in fucking November.
How many people would take that option now? You know, when you book a holiday for 2 weeks, that 10th day, how many people would just go, fuck it, I'm going out. If they had the option to just tap out and it cost them nothing.
Yeah. If you could just do it. If you could just go and... Yeah.
If you could just be like, I'm home. Yeah. So many people on the 10th day of a 2-week holiday would just fuck off. Defo.
I think you can ruin a lot of things by dragging it out. Yeah. And I'm not saying you want to be one of those persons like, right, fucking last like mouthful of the tiramisu, drop the fork and be like, everyone up, we're out, fuck it. Like, I get it, but with a holiday that's been going so well, And then the weather goes shit. You're like, mate, we've got a house to renovate, essentially. So we tapped out. Mate, talking about Etta and the podcast, no context, have a word.
This was your fault. So whoever runs the no context have a word, and we're pretty sure this is only going to go out to Patreon, this podcast episode. Yeah. Well, we'll see where it goes. We don't know what this is going to be really.
It depends. It depends what we achieve on it. If we do what we set out to achieve, then it's going to go on Patreon. But then again, I don't know. I don't know what it
feels too important. Like we're here to talk some mental health shit, which we'll get to. It might be too important.
Also, the email we got, which has started the conversation about, that wasn't on Patreon. That was an email.
Yeah. Okay, so maybe this goes public. But even if it is just on Patreon, we know whoever runs No Context Have a Word is a Patreon. Now, I love No Context Have a Word because for some reason, all the worst ones are him. And what was the latest one? No, I fuck kids. I love fucking kids. I just want to fuck kids. You said something like that. In context, obviously, not as bad as just on its own.
Well, no, that's the thing, isn't it? It's all in context, and I love an ad-libbed character. If anything, it's why I enjoy podcasting so much. The two mediums I think I'm best at are answer phone messages, WhatsApp voice messages, answer phone messages. For some reason, you give me that, like, I'm just going to be a knob for a minute, 40 seconds, and podcasting. But if you take things out of context, it's funny, innit?
It's so funny.
I wasn't laughing yesterday. I'm still not laughing about it now, and I know it's funny.
So funny.
I'm not ready.
You're too close to the elephant because it's about you.
I was in a soft play car park. We were early. Oh God, it's like making me feel warm and anxious. We were early. Like Laura's stressed, tired, unpacking, fucking making a meal of it. I was like, I'm going to take Etta to Zippy's soft play. Also, soft play's fucking great at the moment because there's only like, instead of like packing in kids, like it's feral usually. Saturday morning at soft play is a shit show. And you've also got older kids twatting into younger kids. It's hard work.
Like Christmas Eve in a city centre.
Fucking, yeah, it's that. It's horrible.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, you can only have 8 children with one parent. You're like in an empty soft play that's full now. Sat in the car park, just going to kill 3 or 4 minutes. I'll check Twitter. Oh, no context, have a word. Oh, it's Adam's just got some likes already. This must be a funny one. I can't even remember what I've been listening. Oh, me and Etta had music on in the car, but I'd played it via YouTube on my phone. So I had it up full volume. I never have my phone volume on full volume because I use it for round the house and porn. So it's always sneaky,
super
quiet.
Low. Yeah. You need some earphones for that shit though. Porn's only really good at full blast.
Full volume. Oh, it's getting us annoying. Like, shut up.
Who are you watching?
I like whispery porn. Like, shut up. Full volume. Etta, because we've just killing time, I've unplugged her from the seat. She's like, Daddy, I want to sit in the front seat. Come closer to the phone. I fuck kids. That loud. This is a 3.5-year-old who's fucking bright, confident, good with the words, and loud. She went, Daddy, you said a bad word to kids. She got what I'd said. She knows, so I have to apologise now. Bad traffic. She goes, and I go, fuck. She's like, Daddy, that's a naughty word. And I have to go, I'm very sorry. I apologise, Etta. I say sorry. You don't say naughty words. Like, Daddy, you do not say naughty words. I was like, no. She didn't just hear the swear word. She heard the kids. Yeah. She went, you did a swear to kids? She literally got what was said.
Yeah.
If I could have crumpled my phone.
By the way, can we just chef's kiss to whoever runs the No Context Have a Word? And
if you don't know.
If you don't know what we're talking about, by the way, if you're just a casual listener to the pod or whatever,
it's the end of me. Whoever's doing it.
There's a Twitter account called No Context Have a Word, and a few people have messaged saying they think it's us doing it. I can assure you It absolutely is not. It's not Carl either. We know for a fact it isn't because I've checked everything on his phone. It's a listener. It's an avid podcast listener who takes some of the stuff we say out of context. And the fact that you got him to play that in the car with his child there is harrowing for him and world-class Puskas Award-winning goal for me. I think it's your fault.
And it's funny, but it's too real and I can't laugh yet.
Well, I am telling you right now, it's the funniest thing that's happened with this podcast so far, which is saying a lot. And the fact that you thought for any moment that you could play a no context have a word. If you haven't, go to no context have a word right now. Pause this, whatever you're watching it on or listening to it on, and go to Twitter, go to no context have a word and listen to them all. And then you will be with me and you'll be saying, he's a fucking dickhead.
I am.
For press and play. There's no good ones. There's not one no context have a word that Etta could listen to and be like, Daddy, that was really funny.
Right, that needs context as well. On a very early episode, I did the impression of my daughter and he went, she sounds Bangladeshi. She's not actually Bangladeshi. I was so scared as we ran into soft play. I had to give her a pep talk and we do not say bad words. And we do not repeat what was... I thought she was going to literally run into soft play, yay, and then just go up to the first random parent and child and go, my daddy fucks kids. I honestly, no context have a word. I'm not joking. I know it's funny. I haven't laughed yet, even though I'm retelling the story, because I genuinely think it could be social services involved. And when Laura hears the explanation, she's come, I'm sorry, why do we now have to sit attended by a social worker with our kids? And I'll be like, because I'm a bellend and I have a comedian mate who's a bellend and then a bellend listener who's good on fucking audio editing.
See, here's the thing, right? If this podcast
Funny rat
gets your kids taken off you, I will struggle to not find that funny.
There's more time for podcasting, isn't it?
We're doing 3 a week.
We're doing 3 a week.
That's the definition of childcare when it's a fucking foster parent in Wilmslow. You got childcare? Yeah, she's with June. And there's 7 cats.
We don't have babysitters. She's got new parents.
I did some gigs in Leeds at the weekend, which were very funny. We're on a barn, and when I got there, the guy running it, Dean, who works for Get Comedy, who runs some amazing things. By the way, if you're local to Yorkshire, they're running more of them. It's gardengigs.co.uk. I just want to give them a big shout out because it was fucking brilliant. They were so much fun, and they managed to make a barn in the middle of nowhere feel like a comedy club. It was gorgeous.
It looked great.
It was fucking... The early show was really good, and the late show was phenomenal. The late show was fucking brilliant. But there was a kid there with his mum. There was a kid. The kid was 12. And Dean was like, just so you know, if you don't mind afterwards, could you get a photo with Max? And I was like, yeah, sure. He went, yeah, he's a really big fan of the podcast. And I was like, how old is he? 12. I was like, this is not for 12-year-olds. What kind of fucking parent would let their child listen to this? What kind of parent would let their 12-year-old child listen to this podcast and then bring them to see me live after it? And it turns out it was a woman who you did stand up for at her wedding.
It's Carrie Cheeseman. Do you know, I've gigged for a lot of people over the years and I've met a lot of people at gigs. But if you have the surname Cheeseman, and I will never forget you. And it's literally part of the reason I played their wedding is because they were like, listen, we want you to do the Cheeseman wedding. And I was like, what? The wedding of the Cheesemans? I'll be there. And we did the hi-fi. We did the hi-fi. And they paid me like 200 quid to just come to the hi-fi like 2 hours earlier than I would have been anyway. They dragged their whole wedding to a comedy club. From wedding, instead of going like wedding to reception, they went wedding, comedy club, reception.
That
cool as fuck.
Is phenomenal. And I am going to do the same for my wedding. Whenever I find
big announcement.
One.
Yeah. Wow. I was only in North Wales for 5 days. Yeah, it was great. I ripped it for the first 2 rows. Like they were like, Hercules, Hercules. And then, there was one granddad. I assume he was like great uncle fucking Moody. Oh, he not like my comedy. Oh, it was amazing. Ripped it. Fucking family of hatred. And they were like, no, they loved it. I was like, no, Cheesemans. No, they did not. They fucking hated it. But it was fine because they wanted it so much and it made it worthwhile. But weddings are, if you're a new comic, Tread carefully.
Well, interesting that comes up, really, because, again, at
I
those
love it that
Leeds
they brought
gigs...
their kid to the fucking gig.
It was just her and the kid. The dad wasn't there.
Stephen Cheeseman, no.
This is his name. So at the same gigs, a couple come up to me afterwards and was like, we just want to ask, do you do private bookings? And if so, how much do you charge? And I went, the answer is not really. Now, we get the odd message about this from people who listen, like, oh, we'd love you to come and do this and whatever.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, right? Because I think, having had this conversation with these people, I think people don't really understand why comedians don't like doing it. So I want to talk about it for a sec, okay? So they were like, do you do them? And I was like, the answer's not really. I essentially charge so much for them that no one ever books me because I don't want to do them. So I charge so much money that even if it's dreadful, I won't care. And they were like, well, what do you mean? They said, because we've asked so many other comedians, and one the guy, I don't know their names. I do think they listen to the podcast though. He's like, we asked a couple of comics and we offered them, like $2,500 to come and do our wedding. And
what?
And they were like, oh, sorry, I'd want more than that. And I was like, well, I'm looking around the room that we've just watched you do stand up in, and there's no way you're making $2,500 from this. So why are you turning it down at my wedding? And I went, well, I would do the same, and here's why. It's because at a comedy club, right, you turn up, everyone in the room, or most of the people in the room, has paid to see comedy, and they're expecting comedy, and there's stage lights, there's a microphone plugged in, there's a sound system, everyone is sat facing the stage, everyone knows what's about to happen, and that makes a gig so much easier than if you go to a wedding. There's people there who don't really want to be there and just felt obliged to go because you're family. There's people who absolutely want to be there but just want to watch you do your first dance and cut the cake. And there's old people who are like, this is not comedy. Comedy was different. You used to tell jokes and you couldn't say cunt, but you could say the P word.
That granddad at the
And
Preach.
It's so badly unplayable, and also your wedding is it's the best day of your life, or it should be for a lot of people. And as a comic, I'm like, there's no way I'm not gonna ruin this. Also, I do what I do. I'm not gonna let anyone tell me, oh, come and do our wedding, please, but please don't talk about that or about that. If you book me, you're getting what you get. And I'm not necessarily the most family-friendly comedian on the planet. So I was like, look, I know if I come to your wedding, you two are going to love it. If you've seen me here and listened to my podcast and gone, we want Adam Rowe to play our wedding, you're going to love it. And maybe 10% of your friends and family are going to love it. But then there's going to be a few people who are ambivalent, and there's going to be a lot of people who weren't expecting comedy, didn't know it was on, don't like what I do, and are going to get quite upset because I'm going to say cunt in front of children. So because of that, you can look around this barn and go, right, there's 100 people in, and everyone's paid 15 quid. So at most, he's getting 1,500 quid. But that doesn't take into account the promotion.
I wish you were
running
like
the
that.
gig.
Wouldn't it be good?
But the basic maths of it means there's a maximum of 1,500 quid in that budget, and I can't be possibly getting more than that. And I can understand you looking at that and going, right, let's say he's getting $1,000. Why wouldn't he do our wedding for 2.5? And I went to him, mate, I wouldn't do it for 5. And I really wouldn't. I would not do it. He absolutely would, of course he would. But you've got those gears that I haven't, and you will play the room more than I will.
Mate.
For 10 grand, I would think about it. And they were like, right. They went, every other comedian we've asked has just gone, oh, it'd be 7 grand. Oh, it'd be 5 grand. Oh, it'd be this, right? And we've never really understood why they're asking us for so much money. My market is 10. And it's not because I'm absolutely not in a position to turn down £2,000 for a gig. I'm not. I'm really not. Like, if you looked at my bank, you'd be like, you need to be taking £500 for a wedding.
Yeah.
Like, COVID has hit us all. Like, we're getting by, but fuck me, it's depleted. I'm in no position to turn that down, really. But I can't live with the fact that if I do stand up at your wedding and it ruins your wedding because your auntie gets pissed off, or your nana gets pissed off, or granddad has a heart attack because he hears me say cunt in front of women, and he's like, no, you don't say that in front of ladies. I can't kill your granddad and then live with myself unless you give me money to make myself feel better about it.
If they said, look, we're wealthy, and we do private parties for our mates, we love, and then they listed Mickey Flanagan, Andrew Maxwell, James Acaster, Bill Burr. Will you come and do our private party at our big fucking house for $2.5 grand? You'd be like, what's the difference between that and a wedding? You're like, because I'd be ruining a party with your fucking Tory mates. That is different from a wedding. A wedding is a corporate gig, is essentially $2,500 to ruin someone's fucking works do. I don't give a fuck. You don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. We're all here for money. No one's like, oh my God, it's the awards do. We just love it because we're so passionate about graphic design. Fuck off. You're there for the money, but weddings are high risk.
I would do your funeral for less money than I would do your wedding.
Mate, for $2,500, I'd play a fucking Taliban training camp. I'd be like, Salam alaikum, my friends. Who's drinking?
My corporate rates are very, very, very low. Like, my agent sends some stuff through and they're like, we think we can get you some more money from this. I'm like, don't fucking highball them. Let's just take that. And I'm very happy. But it's just weddings. Weddings to me are just the biggest no-no in the world. So I've always priced myself out of it because I absolutely know that what I do is in no way worth £10,000 to anybody. But if anyone's ever fucking stupid enough to go, not a problem, mate, I'm a millionaire, then I will happily ruin your wedding and put a deposit down on a house. But until that happens, I'm not playing a wedding. Totally. And I just felt like our listeners might be like, should we get Adam and Dan to come and do a podcast at our wedding? Which I'd be far more open to, by the way. That'd be funny as fuck. But yeah.
We love the pod. Can you come and do a podcast record at the wedding? No. Because no one needs to shout nonce at a wedding.
No, but I would do that, you know.
I fuck it. I've done it again. I've just given him another. Oh,
you gave him, by the way, no context, have a word. If they're as genius as they appear to be from the cutouts, from you talking about the fact that you were upset with what he did, you gave him about 4 or 5 new coats. At one point you went, Etta said, can I get in the front seat? And then I said, I fuck kids. You literally said that before. You've
fine. I've unfollowed it. I'll never watch it again. I literally can't. I don't want to lose my marriage with my wife.
It will be like my life's goal now to get you to watch every single one.
Oh, it's good to be back, innit?
It is.
It's so nice just talking fucking bullshit. This feels like, I love Carl being here and I love having the guests here. This feels weirdly like, remember this? I haven't seen you for a week, and it's literally like a little bit of time travel. Obviously, the surroundings.
Do you remember the 21st night of January when we used to do it in your cupboard?
One a week. Come round to my spare room, and we'd be like, right, this is what we'll do. And now it feels like, we just said before the podcast, like, it's how the weirdest time passage there, isn't it? That feels like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's weird, isn't it? This year feels like, and this is almost like a cliche hack thing to say, it has dragged and flown. Do you know what I mean? Like, that feels like 3 years ago. I don't really remember coming to your house to do podcasts. It feels that long ago. I barely remember doing them via Zoom during the lockdown. I feel like we've been here for about a year and a half. We've only been doing the podcast 9 months.
So many via Zoom. 6 a week for 8 weeks.
Also, we're like 3 months away from Christmas, and I'm like, where the fuck has this year gone? How have we packed? Tiger King feels like it was in 2001.
It was so long ago when we watched a gay man married 2 not gay men and went, fucking tigers are mental, aren't they?
I didn't even finish it. I got 2 episodes in and fucked it off.
That was so funny because I remember if you've done all the episodes, you'll hear it get mentioned a few times. What you don't know is behind the scenes, Adam was like, right, lockdown, people aren't going to be doing much. We've not got much to talk about. Definitely watch Tiger King. I was like, oh, right. He was like, you need to watch it. So I watched it. I was like, should we talk about it? He was like, not watched it. This is the mad thing. I don't want another lockdown. And I think it would be immoral and economically suicidal.
Lonely.
Part of me. I've had moments in the last couple of weeks where I'm like, there's too much going on here. On a very selfish level, if they locked it down again, I'd be like, oh, a bit of peace and quiet. And by the way, and I'm going to say this definitively now, anyone who's like, I keep hearing lockdown, maybe we'll get shut down dailies. You won't. You won't. And I know why you want it, but it's not best for the pod or me or Adam. Like, what we're doing now, this is an extra one because we want to do it. And that can still happen. And maybe that will happen a bit more regularly. But to commit to that schedule of podcasting, it fucks up. It fucks up the rhythm. It fucks up the chemistry. It means that we run out of things to say. And I think it affects the standard. Like, it works like this.
I do think it is worth saying, though, because we've got quite a lot of new listeners now. And I know if you're quite new to the podcast, if you've only been sort of on board for the past couple of weeks or whatever, I know some of you have gone back to the beginning and you've been smashing through like 6 episodes a day, and that's fucking phenomenal. But also, there is quite a lot of people who've just gone, I started listening when Stephen Tries was on, and I've just watched the ones after that.
That guy's gold dust.
If you don't know what we're talking about with these shutdown dailies, during lockdown, the original lockdown from like March until a few months ago, me and Dan did an episode of this podcast every single day, and it really helped grow this podcast, and it's put us in a position to sort of get the studio and stuff. But it was, you know, it was tough at times. Like, I don't want to, everyone's had it tough. I'm not complaining in any way, shape or form, but, you know, to have an entertaining conversation with the same person every single day at the same time. So we won't be doing that. If people are like, oh, there's another lockdown coming, but that means we get more daily have a words. You won't, but you will get a little bit more content out of us probably. At the minute, we do quite a lot of podcasting. You get about 4, if you are a Patreon member. And if you're not, I mean, what the fuck are you waiting for at this stage? It's £3 a month, which is, I paid £3.20 for a coffee on the way here. For £3 a month, you can also pay 5 or 10, and there's extra benefits for that. But everyone from £3, £5 and £10, you get an extra episode every week, which is like an hour and a half of content. And you get early access to everything public that we do.
And the public episodes are like 2.5 hours long. So we are clocking 4 hours of podcast there. When we were doing the 6 a week, we took Sundays off. Some days they were like 50 minutes. Like, we are doing a lot of content. It's not going to be daily because, mental health wise, I think that puts a strain on you and me. People love this pod because they come to it. I think they love it for a lot of reasons. It's fun. We're mates. They can tell that. We're very honest. Sometimes too honest, as he nearly loses his kids to social services. But yeah, I don't want to lose that fun. I don't want to lose the fun, is what I'm trying to say.
And it sort of brings us on nicely to why we've come here today. So if you're a regular listener, you'll know normally we put a public episode out on Monday and the Patreon goes out on Wednesday. And Patreons get access to the Monday episode a few days early. But this is a little extra thing because over the past couple of episodes, we've touched on a few things. So one of the things we spoke about was the fact that it was the anniversary of my mum's death, and I'd put a photo on Instagram and Facebook just talking about my mum, and the way I've dealt with it or not dealt with it is probably more accurate. And I got a lot of messages from the photo. I've had even more messages about the episode where I spoke about it. And we've also spoken about like the impact on people's mental health that these lockdowns and the COVID regulations are having. And there's also a few other things that we'll get onto in a bit. Like I had a conversation with a girl the other day who I'm not going to name, but she's given me permission to tell the story of a conversation I had with her. But, you know, first of all, I want to say thank you to every single person who has messaged me personally about the photograph I put up of my mum, the post about my mum, but more specifically, the episode. I've had so many people get in touch and say, I lost my mum when I was young and I don't think I've ever really dealt with it, or I lost my mum and this is how I dealt with it. And I haven't actually, I've been sort of overwhelmed by it. I haven't replied to that many people yet because there's so many of them. I promise you all, whether it takes me a month or 6 weeks, I'm going to reply to every single one of you in detail, personally, to each message that I've got. I promise you that. They are coming, and I'm sorry. I have read them all, even if it doesn't come up that I've read them, because I get a lot of like message requests to me Instagram and stuff. There's hundreds of messages there. I've read every single one, and I've got a bit teary at times because it feels very weird. This is primarily a bullshit podcast, and if you're a regular listener, you know that. This is fucking high-speed bullshit nonsense, and we made a decision quite early on with this. We were going to stay as far away from politics as we can. We're not going to do that today. And we were going to stay away from sport because we wanted this to be a break away from the things that make people angry. We wanted you to be able to turn our podcast on and it just be an escape and just be funny. And that's why this is an extra episode and we haven't done what we're doing here today. on a normal episode, because we've spoke a little bit there for about half an hour about some bullshit, but it feels like this has to be slightly off the pace of what we normally do, doesn't it? Because getting messages about your dead mum is just not necessarily the biggest place, or the place that the most humour is going to live, but it is touching, and the fact that talking about her has touched other people and made them reach out, or people have even said, like, I now feel like I can talk about my mum just because I've heard you talk about yours. And having that feeling, it's so humbling, and I can't really, I've got shivers going down my spine now, because it's been really, really humbling is the word. I haven't really got another word for it. And we want to be able to say that if you're a regular listener to this, or you're not, if you're a casual, we don't really care. If you listen to this and anything we say strikes a nerve with you, or, you know, if it makes you feel like you can say something, or if you've got something you want to talk about with us because your close friends, you don't know how to tell them, or your family, you don't know how to tell them, you can email us. You can send us a message on Instagram. You can DM us on Twitter, Facebook, wherever you want. It's haveawordpod@gmail.com. That's always the best place.
We get a lot of emails, by the way. We get a combination of just random abuse, of like banter. I don't think we've ever had a shitty email in nearly a year, in like 10 months. We get people doing the banter with us, commenting on like a story we've told, or telling their version of a story. We get would you rathers. We get suggestions for all sorts. We get people emailing, and I don't respond. Like, I do a lot of the emails. I respond to some. If you've sent something and you feel like, oh, you didn't message me back, please know that some days we can get 25, 30 emails. Over the course of a week, it can be a few hundred. Over the course of a month, I clear some of the stuff that we get in. It's a shit ton of emails, so we don't respond to everything.
We do read everything, though.
Literally we read every email.
Everything.
But a lot of them, and obviously with Adam talking so candidly about his mum and his mum's death, and how he's dealt with it, and grief and all of that, in mentioning that, we also talked about just people's general health, because the lockdown has been mooted, and we all know that we went through a lot personally. We've been talking about it in terms of the pod and how it was. We talked about it during the lockdown. They're all there on Podbean. It was before we did the videos. It's just in audio. It was like a diary of two lids, like trying to not fucking fall to bits. And we talked about our situation, but we started getting emails about people's mental health. And I think what we tried to do with this podcast in the start was to be funny, make each other laugh. We literally said, if we can keep each other interested or make each other laugh.
If I can make a headline comic laugh, then there's going to be people watching this who can't breathe laughing.
But we're not always trying to do shtick. We don't come on here going, this will be really funny. We're just trying to be honest and genuine. And I think that strikes a chord. And when we were going through the lockdown the first time, we talked about your health anxiety, everyone's mental health. And we started getting emails quite regularly about what this pod meant to people. And in those emails, people have been, and they've literally said, please don't read this out. This is just something I need to tell you. And what I've noticed is, because we've talked about mental health a little bit more recently, we've got more of these emails.
We get so many more messages about serious stuff than we do funny. Like no, that's not true. We get a lot.
It's pretty equal measure. Like,
but what I mean is, like, if we tell a funny story about, like, that story about you having a threesome, we maybe got 10 messages specifically about that bit, and then we'll get 10 messages about something else from the same episode, and we'll get 10 messages about something else from the same episode. We've had over 500. Well, I've had over 500 messages about my mum. Like, it's unbelievable the amount of people who've got in touch about it.
But especially with mental health at the moment. Is that what you want to talk about now? Or do you want to talk about that?
No, I think we'll get to that email in a second, which has sort of been the catalyst for us doing this episode today. So what we want to talk about, on a recent episode, I was quite sort of visceral and angry with sort of the idea of a second lockdown coming. Now, I just want to say before we start talking about this, we're not experts. And we're not pretending to be. And I don't know anything apart from the things I see on my Facebook and my Twitter. I don't really look into that much stuff. I don't. So don't listen to this and take it as advice. Don't listen to this and take it as factual. Don't listen to this and take it as read. It's not. I'm influenced by the same social media bubble that everyone else is. And there's a reason that the right, or everyone on the right wing thinks everyone on the left is an idiot. And there's a reason that everyone on the left thinks everyone on the right is a racist or whatever. It's because the information you see is not being seen by the other side. Go and watch. There's a new Netflix documentary called The Social Dilemma, and it'll show you how we're all being influenced and how these bubbles and living in a bubble works. It's absolutely terrifying, and it makes me fear for the future because you only really see stuff that you're going to like. That's all you get shown. There's so much confirmation bias.
It's an echo chamber.
An echo chamber is exactly the right word. So none of this is overly researched. None of it is, right? Now, I'm against a new full lockdown. And the reason I'm against it is based on the information I've seen. I'm sure there's information that I haven't seen, which means that a lockdown should absolutely happen. And there's no way that we should be opening comedy clubs and letting 200 people go into a room that fits 200 people. I'm sure that information's there. I haven't seen it. I haven't found it. The reason I think that another lockdown is because I'm listening to my mates. I'm listening to the owners of comedy clubs who've worked hard for decades to put their comedy clubs in a position where they can be just about profitable. And now they're getting no help from the government in staying open, and the government are essentially going, no, you can stay open because we don't want to give you any more money, but we're going to make it as difficult as possible for you to run. The big thing with a second lockdown for me is, and again, I'm not saying I'm an expert here, is the effect it will have on people's mental health. Now, the first lockdown for me was, it was okay. I had a girlfriend at the time. If you're a regular listener, you'll know. I recently broke up with her, which is absolutely the right decision. I'm happier. She's happier. Our lives are going to be better for us being apart. And there's no ill feeling between me and Jade. There really isn't. But it was time for that to end. A big part of why I survived the first part of lockdown is because I had her there. Like, we were drifting apart from being in love, but we still, I still loved her. It just wasn't a romantic thing anymore.
You're still friends.
Yeah. And we were a support network for each other. And I've suffered for years with anxiety. I hope Jade won't mind me saying that I know she won't, has suffered badly with depression. And I learned how to deal with her depression. She learned how to deal with my anxiety. And we really needed each other in that first lockdown. Another thing that did help me, as tough as the shutdown daily episodes of this podcast were, having an outlet to be funny was massive for me. The lack of gigs was draining me. I need gigs. I make jokes about it on stage now. You get used to it as a comedian. You get used to people clapping and cheering every time you say something funny. And it's the same as drugs. It's exactly the same as drugs. It has the same effect on your brain as having a fucking needle in your arm full of heroin, because there's no way to replicate it. There's no way to replicate you going, I think this is funny, and 200 people through laughter going, we do too. There's no way to replicate that feeling, and that went away. And that first lockdown, the lack of that was so difficult to deal with, and a big problem for me with the government's new approach. And it looks, a lot of people are talking, a second lockdown is now inevitable. It's going to come because cases are rising and stuff like that. And I get it. I totally get it. There's a deadly virus out there. There's a virus that, is killing people. It's taking people's lives. Loved ones are being lost. But no one in a position of power seems to be looking at the lives that are going to be lost as a byproduct or as a side effect of lockdown. And it's not even about lives lost, it's about people's personality changing. We got an email this week that we both, Carl was nearly crying when he seen this email. I showed him it, and I want to read it out because, like I say, I don't know what's for the best. I don't know whether it's best to open everything up like Sweden did, take the whole virus on the chin. Unfortunately, that means people are going to get sick, or to lock down completely and try and wait for a vaccine or whatever. I don't know what the best thing to do is. I don't. But if I can see, and I'm a 28-year-old fucking idiot who doesn't look into anything, but if I can see a glaring problem with the government's approach to it, why the fuck can't they? There's problems there that no one's addressing, and this is one of them. We got an email from a lad, and he's given us permission to read this out on the podcast. It's the only reason we're doing it. We're not going to name him. So, We got this email on the 21st of September after a recent episode where I spoke about how the government don't seem to be looking at the fact that mental health is going to be affected by a second lockdown, and there's been nothing put in place to protect people's mental health if they're on a second lockdown, especially people who are alone as well. And I don't think this lad is alone, but I'm going to be alone now. If there's a second lockdown, I'll be locked up on my own. Me bird's gone, me dog's gone. And again, it's for the right reasons and it's a good move. But that
can feel very lonely in a busy house though, can't you? That's being alone is a state of mind as well. Fuck's sake.
Hey, so this is the email. Hey, so what's happening, lids? Basically, I was just listening to the latest episode of the podcast and hearing your opinions on the effect that another lockdown could have on someone's mental health. And it made me think about the way it affected me as a person and the severe toll it took on my mental health. To be honest, thinking about the two good things I had during shutdown, I've got to stick with the shutdown, Brandon. So Dan's had a lot of shit for calling it a shutdown and not a lockdown, and Dave's leading into that. I need to bleep his name.
It's a better explanation of what it was. It wasn't a lockdown. It was a shutdown.
During lockdown was my relationship with my girlfriend, which to be honest was rocky at the worst of times during the shutdown. And the second thing being this podcast, the daily uploads was something to me to look forward to each and every day. And having my words answered gave me a little serotonin boost. We're very happy that we could help you in a small way. I've never personally met any of you two, but due to the podcast, I honestly feel like you two are just two of me mates. Like I know more about you than two fuckers. I know more about you two fuckers than I do about most people I know. And I feel like being a listener to this podcast is like being part of some fucked up club. During lockdown, my mental health deteriorated quite drastically until the 28th of May. I attempted to take my own life in the middle of King Edward Street by the Liverpool Echo's building. So King Edward Street is in Liverpool city centre. It's where they print the Liverpool Echo. I was at my lowest and I'm still fairly low, but I feel myself getting better slowly but surely. I've been on mental health leave for a long period of time due to the panic attacks that come with the thought of work. And I'm just saying, I've still been paying a tenner a month for that Patreon, boys. So this guy is being laid off from work and he's still giving us a tenner a month. So what a ledge. Basically, what I'm trying to say is the shutdown affected me to an extent where I didn't want to live a life that I actually enjoy. I'm a 17-year-old. A 17-year-old who before lockdown was a sociable person, but since lockdown, the thought of interacting with people fills me with fear and panic, and it's made the thought of day-to-day life that I lived before lockdown seem so far from what I'm capable of right now. So if another lockdown did happen, nothing much for me would change due to me still having self-shut down for me to improve my mental health. But then for other people that are back to living their normal lives, who barely made it through the initial shutdown, the expected second lockdown will affect people and probably kill a lot more people off than that fucking COVID could ever do. But them Tory cunts who are so fucking incapable of running this country don't fucking think about this stuff until it's too fucking late. So when it eventually gets to the point where the nation is back to the second shutdown and the percentage of suicide rises, it becomes more of a problem than it already is. What will the Tories do then? What will they do when it's too fucking late? That's right. Absolutely nothing. Yeah, if you want to read this or any part of it out during the podcast, then you have my full permission. Thanks a lot for helping my mental health as much as a podcast fucking could. Now, just think about that for a minute. This is a 17-year-old lad. And if you're 17 and you've got a life that you fairly enjoy and it's, it's not that bad, and that initial lockdown can drive you to the point where you're trying to kill yourself in the middle of a city centre. Think about the people who, if a second shutdown comes, are going to lose their job. And, they've got an ex-wife or an ex-husband and they've got kids who are dependent on them and they can't cope with the fact that they can't afford to provide child support or anything like that anymore. What I'm saying is this young lad has come forward. He won't be the only one who's felt like that. He won't be the only one who's tried to end his own life. His situation is not the worst situation that people are going to be in. And he still got to the point where he felt like it was time to end it. And I don't see any help for people like this. I don't see any help for the people who are in relationships, in abusive relationships, men and women who get fucking battered when they're at home. I don't see any help for the people who've lost their jobs and don't see another avenue out. I don't see any help for the people who've got mortgages, like the new post-furlough scheme that got announced earlier today by Rishi Sunak, which is essentially, we're only going to top up the wages of people who are still in work. We're not going to keep paying for people whose jobs are no longer tenable. I don't see any help for these people. I don't see a way that the government are trying to look at this side of it. And you can't put the country, as far as I'm concerned, and again, I'm not an expert, I don't really know what I'm talking about. But I think it's important that I don't know what I'm talking about, and it's important that I haven't looked into it, because most people don't. Most people don't. And when we're talking about a whole country, you have to look at what most people are like. You have to look at working class people who are going to be fucked as a result of this, who are going to lose their jobs. And I've got kids that's dependent on them who are getting their information the same way that I am, and the same way a lot of you do, which is from the bubble that they're in and from the echo chamber that they're in. And if I can't see a way for a 52-year-old man with a mortgage and a wife and a kid who's just lost his job, who's already got mental health issues, who's already struggled through the first 6 months of this year, who knows we're about to go into a recession and doesn't have a job, if I can't see how he's going to see the end of the tunnel, how can he? Because I'm in a very privileged position that I've got this and I've got him and I've got my best mate and I work with them all and I've got a good life. And that email made me cry. I imagine a lot of you listening to it, are upset by that. A 17-year-old. I don't. If the government are going to put us into a second lockdown, they need to think about this. They need to think about the people who aren't going to see a way out. What are they going to do? Where's the help?
And if journalism could fucking pull their socks up as well and start reporting things responsibly and not using clickbait when it comes to pandemics, viruses, and national lockdowns, because it generates an awful fear around it. People have already started panic buying toilet roll. You fucking morons. How can we be doing that again? And it's partly because of journalism. And there are some good journalists out there. But for the love of fuck, can we stop saying that 50,000 people have died from COVID? Because that isn't true. They've died with COVID.
Or after a positive test.
So COVID is in this, it's not the cause of death. And it all generates this awful whirlwind of fear. And then we're back in the same place, panic buying. And also people using literally looking around going, well, there was the lockdown, so there should be a lockdown. We need to, as adults, go, hang on, well, what's right and what's wrong? Rather than just being people are dying, we need to lock down. Do we? Do we? And what point of a government do as a government need to be challenged? I'm not an anti-masker. I've worn my mask everywhere. I'm all for restrictions. I literally, the restrictions in shopping, in bars, in restaurants, if that needs to happen, social distancing and masks, fine. But you've got to let people trade. You've got to let people earn. You've got to let people live their lives. Because if you take all of these away, it's not just stopping a virus, it's taking away a support system of people's existence, old people, vulnerable people, just young people who aren't in a setup that they want to be in. Kids in flats in London who are with abusive alcoholic parents. Locking it all down is such an easy fucking option when you are a wealthy owner of a 5-bedroom property with a big fat fucking garden. It's not easy for everyone. Oh my God, I cannot believe we're even having this conversation.
And also, I know it's basically impossible to ask this with fucking politicians, but just be honest. Because you're just tying yourselves up in so many, and I say yous as if they're fucking watching this. They're tying themselves up in so much fucking hypocrisy and contradictory fucking policies. Oh, do you know, we're all sick of them. You tweeted about it. The same jokes about, oh, well, yeah, COVID doesn't come out till 10 o'clock and that's why whatever. That's why everywhere's shutting at 10. That's fucking stupid, isn't it? I understand it. I get it. After 10 o'clock, people tend to be more drunk. They do. And that means they're going to mingle more and people are going to be kissing in nightclubs. And I get it. Come out and say that. Explain to people why you're putting these policies in place, because to the layperson, to the people who don't look past the fucking headline, and every fucking journalist knows that that's how people work as well, and that's why clickbait articles work, because people just look at the headline and go, that's a fact, and then you read the article and it's not, but so many people just read the headline. Tell people why you're doing this. We're shutting at 10 o'clock because we know after 10 o'clock people are more drunk and this and that and that. But then explain that outweighs the fact that at 10 o'clock now, every single person in the pub is going to be fighting for the same taxis, getting on the same fucking tube home, the same train home, the same bus home. It looks fucking stupid to all of us. It seems idiotic. And I'm very, very left-wing in political policy. I am. And I think I always will be. You know, I've been called a right-wing comedian before, which I think is hilarious just because I say things on stage that I don't mean that I think are funny.
Yeah, because your politics isn't your jokes.
No, it isn't, and it fucking shouldn't be.
People can't make the difference. People have watched this podcast and go, oh my God, are they alt-right? You're like, oh, fucking listen for more than 40 minutes. The
fucking great Dave Chappelle, who's just won an Emmy again for his stand-up special Sticks and Stones, comedy should get to be itself. Comedy is comedy. It's not a fucking political statement. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, this is,
but this isn't fucking comedy, is it?
If anyone's just picked up the podcast and just thought, well, I'll let them just talk waffle for 25 minutes, then I'll see how funny it gets. This one been more of a sort of a opinion-based piece. Do you know the curfew, though?
Yeah.
It can seem nonsensical. I actually think some of these policies are pretty fucking obvious, isn't it? You can't have more than 6 people in a house. When did you decide that policy? About 48 hours before Freshers Week at some universities. Can kind of see it.
It's so transparent.
I can see it.
Just say it.
But with the curfew, it makes sense. People get hammered and then they're stupid. That's absolutely fine. I get these restrictions. They're not forever. But the constant threat of this full lockdown, Christ almighty, how is that even
And if we can see
cards?
It, how can't they?
The point we're trying to make, if you're suffering with your mental health, if the threat of this lockdown, which none of us want, is looming large, if you listen to this podcast, if you watch this YouTube channel, we're not going to be able to fix it, but keep listening. We're going to try and be as honest with the stuff we get in our lives and the situation and any lockdown or any fucking restrictions. But also, we're going to signpost some help. So in the YouTube explanation, on the podcast explanation for the audio, we'll signpost some help to websites, to groups. You probably know these already. And I'll say what I said again a couple of episodes ago. Just reach out either to us or reach out on Twitter, where a lot of our followers are, or at Have a Word Pod, and just at us in, and then we will we'll maybe retweet it. There is a little community here, isn't there?
There really is. And the core listeners of this podcast are very fucking supportive of each other. They all follow each other now. It's quite ridiculous. But haveawordpod@gmail.com. I'm going to make a concerted effort to make this one of my priorities going forward. Especially if a second lockdown does come, and we're halfway there with the new restrictions and whatever. haveawordpod@gmail.com. As I say, we get hundreds and hundreds of messages. I'm going to do my absolute very best, even if it's just a 1-sentence reply. I'll try and do more. I'm going to try and reply to every message we get about mental health, as long as it comes to the email. We haven't replied to that lad yet who sent that email, because I wanted to get it out on here first, and I know it'll mean a lot to him that we've read it out. I'm going to reply to him before I even leave here today.
I shot him something back. If anyone's thinking you should maybe have shot something back, I did straight away. Just a quick one.
I seen you'd done that. And it's not just mental health, it's something I think about a lot now. And something we've sort of joked about it on this podcast, but it seems so innocuous to people who don't understand it. But even like that thing that happened at the start of this year when, I put that selfie on fucking Twitter outside McDonald's, that was the biggest effect on my mental health that I think anything's ever had, apart from like family tragedy. the fact that I thought people fucking hated me because they misunderstood that story. It was awful. Just try and be nicer to people. Twitter's one of our biggest followings apart from like YouTube now. Twitter's so horrible at times, and people really want to get angry as quick as they can, and you're taking it out on people, and it's so easy to do because you don't actually have to see the person's face react to what you're saying. Just try and be a bit nicer. There's so many people going through something that you haven't got a fucking clue about. Do you know what I mean? There's someone with bad mental health issues or physical health issues. Like, I want to tell you the story about a girl I spoke to the other night. So, there's a girl, she's a fan of my stand-up. I'm not going to name her, but she's been a fan of my stand-up for a while. She's followed me for a while, and she sent me a message about, like, just replying to, like, a joke I'd made or something. And then, weirdly, I went on Instagram, and I follow her on Instagram. I follow a lot of people back if they send me a few messages, because I know people sort of like that when... no, you don't. He's a prick. If I have an interaction with someone, I know that, like, to them, I'm someone whose work they enjoy, and I know, like, people like getting followed back. So if I do have a conversation with people, I do tend to do that. And I'd done that a while ago with this girl, and she'd put a picture up, or 3 actually, and a company in the post had said, you look at these 3 pictures, and it was 2 photos of her looking very pretty and smiling, and the 3rd one it looked like a scan of, like, a thing. And it had just come up on my Instagram just as I'd been talking to her. So I just went, hey, because a post said, just because someone is smiling doesn't mean they're not suffering with someone else on the inside. From these photos, you can see it looks like I'm the happiest I've ever been. Happiest and healthiest I've ever been. And that's not always necessarily the truth. And then the picture of what looked like this scan with something wrong. I couldn't quite make out what it was. So I messaged her and I was like, hey, listen, I'm sorry to make... if this is a bit, if you don't want to talk about this or whatever, but you have posted about it. I'm just wondering what that 3rd picture is, because I can't make out what it is. And she said, well, it's actually a cyst that's on me windpipe. And, you know, she told me how she got it. I'm not going to go into that because I don't think that's fair. But she's got a cyst on her windpipe so part of her body had been pushed in to her windpipe, and it's stuck in it. And a cyst has then grown on it, and she's had it removed a couple of times. She's only young. She's younger than me, I think. And she got told very recently that eventually this cyst is going to take her life. And it's...
Jesus.
She got told that a couple of months ago. She's had to make arrangements. She's had to make her will. She's got 2 young kids. And she said, I haven't told my kids because I'm trying to be as happy as I can for them. And I was like, look, I think what you're doing is fucking incredible. I had no idea, you know, you were going through something like this, and the fact you're trying to be there for you. She's like, well, I want my kids to remember all happy times, and then when this happens, they'll just have to deal with it rather than deal with it while it's happening.
That's what my mum did. Which
is a very, very brave thing to do, and a very selfless thing to do. And she hasn't told many of her friends about this until, like, recently. And I sent her my number, and I said, listen, let's be friends. And because she said she was struggling to tell her friends about it or talk about it with people she really knows. And I was like, look, if you get to the end of your day and you just need to rant or be upset, you can text me. And if it's 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm often still awake playing FIFA or something, and I'll talk to you, because I know how hard that can be. And I also know how much easier it can be to talk to a stranger than someone close to you at times. It's weird how that works.
Yep.
You feel really difficult telling, like if I found out I had a bad health issue, I'd find it so much easier to say it on stage than sit my dad down and tell him. I just would.
Yeah, that's why support groups are often with strangers.
Yeah.
Because telling someone you love, you're wrapped up in a very complicated personal relationship with them. There's layers, there's history. Telling a stranger who's going through something similar, it's so simple. It's straight to the point.
Yeah.
It's the issue.
So I'm talking to her and I was like, you know, this is, I think it's, and she's saying, I'm just doing what any mum would do. And that's absolutely not true. I think, you know, some people would really struggle to deal with what she's dealing with at such a young age. And they've basically said if they tried to take what's blocking her windpipe out and it went wrong, she would die on the table and there's nothing anyone could do. And that's the only way they could permanently remove the cyst, because every time they remove it, it grows back. This This is my understanding of it anyway. Again, I'm not a fucking expert on this stuff. So she's been told, you know, we don't know the rate of speed at which this is going to grow, and it's going to completely block your windpipe, but we think that will eventually happen. And she's going to see a specialist tomorrow, I believe, to see if there's any more options. But essentially, she's been told it could be 2 weeks, it could be 3 days, it could be 6 months, it could be 4 years, but eventually this is going to take her life. And you know, then she said, I'm sorry about whinging. She went, tell me what's been happening with you or whatever. And I was like,
thank fuck you've asked. Jesus, fucking banging on about sissy. Let me tell you, I got a parking ticket the other day and I'm fuming.
Well, you know,
like you'd be able to fully fucking bang on about, burnt me dinner.
I went, look, I don't want to do that. And she was like, no, like, I like hearing other people's problems and talking to them because it makes me feel better, or whatever she said. And I was like, look, my life's, you know, okay at the minute. You know, I'm a bit pissed off about gigs maybe disappearing, but that's my big complaint. I went through a breakup recently, but it was my decision and it's a good decision or whatever. And then she was like, well, thanks for sending me your number. And she sent me a text. And then she said, have you ever fucked a girl who's dying?
Oh my God, hospice sex. Let's fucking do it.
And she said, the thing is at the minute, all the men in my life who I've sort of spoke to about this have said they're scared to fuck me in case they kill me during. Because I like being choked and, you know, that's very dangerous at the minute.
Yeah, probably not, don't want a blowjob. But I'll go funny.
Well, I was just like, you know,
I'll go funny.
Like, the thing is, if I fucked you to death, I'd get a fucking banging stand-up show out of that.
In my head, I was like, I wonder how long we can have a serious conversation for, because we're clocking half an hour.
Do you know the thing is, though? Everything. Don't dare press that bell. I will show you the text messages after this.
I believe you.
This is all true. And she said, have you ever fucked a dying girl? And I actually said, well, I haven't fucked a dying girl, but I did fuck a girl who died 3 days later. I've ever told you this story?
You've told it on the pod,
yeah. And she was like, what happened there? And then I was like, see, that would start to look suspicious, wouldn't it? If I fucked you.
That's form.
Yeah.
And this is evidence.
Yeah.
On YouTube.
Yeah.
Have you ever fucked a dying girl? No, because the police just keep turning up to the the crash scene. They're really quick. You know, just as I get hard, I hear ambulances and fucking fire engines, and then people are getting out of the wreckage. Oh God, maybe that should have stayed in my head.
Yeah, and then
have you ever fucked a dying
And she
girl?
was like, I was gonna, so those secret Sunday shows that I've been running in Liverpool, you know, the gigs. She was like, so I just love how people make jokes out of tragedies, you know what I mean? So she's just such a young girl, and she was like, you know that secret Sunday show you're doing? I nearly booked tickets for it, but I don't know whether I'm going to be in hospital or alive by the time it comes round.
I can't get a refund when I'm dead. That's so scouse, isn't it? Like, fucking hell. I would buy tickets, but I've been given like 4 days to live. Do you do refunds if I've passed away?
And I was like, look, listen. I was like, the show is sold out, but if you're still around when that gig happens, then I will sort you 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, however many tickets you want. I will get you in. And even if that means someone with tickets turns up and the venue go, you can't have them all in, I will pay someone to fuck off because you deserve to come to a comedy show. And she went, does this work on all the girls? Right. And I nearly, because I knew she could take a joke, I typed out only the dying ones and I couldn't do it. I shit out. I deleted it. And then she put, or just the dying ones.
Oh, mate.
And I went, oh, I was about to say that. And she was like, you're a fucking shit house. And I've heard you talk about stand-up and you should be allowed to make any joke and you should have went for it. You shit house bitch.
Oh, mate,
and she ripped me for the rest of the night.
Can I just say, with all this talk of lockdown, of mental health, of suicide and all the shit that people are going through, and now this has been a particularly heavy episode, and we mean it. we know we're trying to entertain you while we're doing this podcast, while we're doing this YouTube show. Genuinely get in touch. But
and also,
this last one is a bit too specific. You can't be like, dear Adam and Dan, I've just found out I've got a big fucking tumour in one of my flaps. I've got flap cancer. I've always had big flaps, but now the left one's fucking massive. I'm having to wear really big knickers, and I'm walking slightly to the left. It's a fucking nightmare. Can you imagine?
Here's the thing.
But will you fuck me?
Here's the thing. Look, like I haven't told Dan about this yet. But you know, I knew we were coming here to do this today. I was hoping I was going to get to tell that story. And she kind of gave me permission to do so. And you know, lockdown is coming. Our gigs are going to be disappearing, and we are adding £100 Patreon tier where I will fuck you if you're really upset.
But it's going to happen with this music in the background.
You can pay me to come round.
Girl, that's a big flap.
If you want Dan to be there, he can be there, but he can't get involved because he is married. But I mean, for £100, I will fuck anyone, dying or not.
Also, someone's got to hold the camera, haven't they?
Yeah.
Patreon content.
Yeah, the video of the sex will go on patreon.com/haveawordpod. You can sign up for £3, £5, £10, or now £100 a month. The slow-mo of that creeped me out, you know.
You can't fuck quickly to this music. No one's like, oh shit, Adam. Oh my God, Adam. You've banged her too hard.
Seriously though,
I'll get some kitchen roll.
Imagine if you fucked someone and they died, Jordan. Like, what would I've got messages from this girl. Let's say I do this for her. You know, like a Make-A-Wish thing. Right? Some people want to go to Disneyland. What?
You're not a dolphin. Could you imagine if that became a thing? Like, oh, little Barry, what do you want to do? I know you've only got 2 months to live. What do you want to do? Do you want to swim with dolphins? No, I fucking hate dolphins. They rape me cunts. I want to bang comedian Adam Rowe.
Why's it got to be a fucking child called Barry? This is a lovely adult woman.
Yeah. I'm just saying.
I'm just thinking, right.
Adult women don't usually swim with dolphins. I suppose, you know.
Look, I'm a single guy.
What if you want to fuck a dolphin?
Recently single. And this girl, you know, she's into me. You know, she likes me stand up.
Yeah.
Fan of the podcast.
Mm.
You know,
yeah.
Some people want to go to Disneyland. Some people want to swim with dolphins. Some people want to meet their favourite footballer. And some people want to jump on the roadie, right?
The roadie?
The roadie.
The roadie?
The roadie.
The roadie.
The roadie.
Right.
Yeah.
The roadie for dick.
Yeah.
The roadie.
The roadie. Right.
Right.
So, because I've got all the messages that I sent to her that night, I've screenshotted them so she can't delete them. Right.
Yeah.
So, and we've got this now as well as evidence. So
what are you going to do?
I'm telling you.
Go on.
Right. So let's say I go, look, right, I'm a nice guy. I need some good karma. I'll come and fuck you one last time.
Charity dick.
Yeah. Charity dick. Make a dick foundation. Right.
Make your cum foundation. Go on.
I just want to talk this out with you. So let's say I fuck her and she dies, right, because I get a bit too fucking.
No.
Right.
None of that. Just dick.
Just ask for it.
No. Just you can choke her ankle.
Okay. Right. So her ribs. But let's say let's say I'm fucking going for it, right?
Giving it the full.
And she bites the pillow and
the
dies.
Full 260.
Right?
Yeah.
Because she can't breathe because she's struggling anyway.
Yeah.
Right. What's my first move there? Do you know what I mean? Do I call the police? Do I call you? Do a selfie video for Patreon?
Well, yeah. Don't do a McDonald's Twitter moment. Right, guys, it's fucking 10 to 5 in the morning, and this bitch has died. And then the whole of Evertonian Twitter gets on like, does she work at a fucking McDonald's? She better not work at a fucking McDonald's, you fucking swat. Adam Rose fucked a minimum wage 14-year-old outside McDonald's in Penrith to death with
You're trying to get me on no context, have a word. If anyone has listened to the last 15 minutes of this where we've spoke about that girl, and I still won't name her, she's going to listen to the podcast. If you are upset by anything we've said, I want you to have a word with yourself.
Come on,
yes!
That's how you broadcast.
She will be fucking delighted when she hears that. She's got a very sick sense of humour. She's fucking wonderful. And I'm just hoping that she gets some news from a specialist. That means she's going to be all right. But if she isn't, she's got this.
All right.
Which is, you know,
massive love to her.
Such a really good thing that we've done, actually. We're such good people. The podcast.
And everyone who's emailed in, keep them coming. And whatever's coming in the next month, 2 months, 3 months, like we said back in March, we'll get through it together.
And look, there's every chance that people will see this episode that haven't seen anything else before. Because, you know, the type of stuff we've talked about, maybe it's a slight step away from what we do in the most part of other things. And if you found this episode and you're like, do you know what? I want more from those guys, then you should only really be judging that on the last 15 minutes. Like, if fucking girls to death is your thing, then subscribe to Have a Word Pod on YouTube.
Let's call this a little random pod.
I think people are going to enjoy this. Thank you. If look, just yeah,
it can't all be shtick. And like, you almost feel bad because we've been so funny, like tried to be funny, been honest, like enjoyed doing it. When you've got a genuine opinion and you're just trying to answer an email, you almost feel as a comedian like, oh, goodness me. But we just do what we do, don't we? And if people like it, and obviously they do, they're still on board. So yeah, haveawordpod@gmail.com. We'll signpost some stuff about mental health and well-being in the descriptions. And,
all correspondence to haveawordpod@gmail.com. If you've enjoyed this, then go and check out some other stuff. We've got some great episodes with some great guests. They're all the guest episodes are on YouTube. And if you want to go through the whole back catalogue, you need to go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, a podcast app sort of thing.
I need a wee.
Why are you talking about your dick?
I need a wee.
Oh.
So look after your mental health. Don't kill yourself, but I need a piss. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. And I would say if you've just found this episode and gone, I really want to know whether this is my type of thing, go and watch the episode with Eshan Akbar. And if you still like it after that, then you're on board. And we'll see you very soon. Bye, Felicia. Bye, Felicia.